Alright, take a little spin around Shorewood. Let's check out the race. Good day, my friends. Welcome to another Tour of America's Dairyland and another Brian Davis Races Racecast. So, today went much better. And this should be a fun race to comment on because there's actually some action that I participated in. So, fun race, good course. This is in Shorewood, Wisconsin. Weather was threatening rain, but held off for our race. Apparently, it rained in the pro race a bit, so glad I wasn't participating in a wet race, that's for sure. So we're off the front. Pretty much got the whole shot today. My friend from New York ahead of me, and I think I have a good idea what he's thinking. Oh, dear Lord, I do not want to be doing this right now in the front of the field. Because I can tell you, I was thinking the same thing. If he pulls off, I do not want to be in front of this field. But he's doing a fine job. And great neighborhood, as you can tell from these houses. Just a beautiful part of Milwaukee, and a really fun atmosphere down in Shorewood. I didn't get a chance to stick around for the pro race, but apparently it went exceptionally well in terms of having a crowd there and everybody hooting and hollering and having a good time. So this was a cool course. I had never done this course before, and apparently the reason for that is this is the first time I've been racing Masters 1, 2, 3 at Tour of America's Dairyland. In the past, I've been doing Masters 3, 4s. And the Masters 3, 4s did not do this course, along with a couple other categories, were not invited to this particular course. So this was the first time I was on the course, and it was nice. I really liked it. It was a really smooth course. There's a couple larger bumps on this section, but nothing too tragic. So. And then coming up here, we're going to turn left and go through this little chicane. And this was a really fun, pretty cool part of the course. It looks tight in the way the race played out. Never once did I feel concerned about that chicane, so no big deal. And then we're going to fly down here for a 90-degree turn and get back to the start-finish. So the laps were pretty long. But yeah, it was fun. So, you know, one question I've been pondering in my head is, how much do I want to talk about my race, just because it's my camera, and how much do I want to talk about trying to help people that are not racing or are just starting racing learn some things. So I'm going to try to be a little more disciplined with that side of the commentary today, where I can talk a little bit about what things to look out for when you're a Cat 4 or 5, and how you would maybe work your way up the ladder. So, and if anyone has any comments, it'd be great to hear what you have to say about different ways that people could pick up racing, or different, you know, one of your favorite tips that you give to people. I always like the one where I tell a 4-5 racer that only the 4-5s check the inside of a corner. 3s do it occasionally, and you rarely, if ever, see that with 2s and 1s. So you see in this corner, everyone's head is bolted on straight. Nobody's spinning around looking for whether or not they're chopping a line or whatever the case is. So it's interesting. I felt better today. There's no hills, obviously, in this course. So after getting dropped the last couple days, I was ready for some vindication. I switched gloves, and I can only imagine that switching gloves was absolutely a huge determinant in my overall improvement. So, yeah. So I'll be keeping those gloves on today, that's for sure. So we go down today and race again, and that racecast will be up shortly. But, yeah. Let's see here. We got I'm still maintaining a good group here, and I know what's going on in my head. At this stage of the race, I remember distinctly that I'm thinking, oh yeah, bike racing. I know how to do that. So when this center group starts to slow a little bit, now you're seeing guys come up on either side, left and right. They're both coming up. And the guy in the middle up there, he doesn't really want to be on the front, so, you know, no problem. But as he starts to back off, that's what we call getting swamped. So when people come from the left and right, now in order to stay in the front of the race, you need to be able to figure out a way to surf your way over to the left or to the right so you can ride the wave back up to the front. And that's how you stay in the front of a group, lap after lap after lap, if you want to. A lot of racers are more comfortable sitting in the, I shouldn't say it, I guess it's an equal number of racers are comfortable sitting in the back and waiting till the last lap or two to work their way up. I'm not necessarily that way. I've been forced to be that way with this series just because my fitness is not enough where I can be on the front of the peloton and feel like I belong there. Yeah. So a friend of mine and I were talking after the race, and his comment was we were again having that discussion about what matters more: bike handling, efficiency in turning, drafting, whatever the case is, or fitness. And we determined that fitness was definitely the number one factor, because if you have the fitness, you therefore grow the confidence to earn your spot. And earning or keeping your spot is a big part of what happened in this race as we go through the commentary. So there's definitely some mistakes I made, and that's I think a big part of this race casting too is I make mistakes so you don't have to. So if you're willing to watch these and see what kind of screw ups I did, it's just like getting a rep at a race. Like the more you race, the better you get at it. And that's not only for fitness, it's also for just understanding how races unfold and tactics and things like that. So it's important to understand that. So in this race, or in this whole series, the things to pay attention to are the gentleman ahead of me is the race leader. That's there's two White brothers, Ryan and Rob, I think. And I honestly don't know who that is leading the series because I don't look at the standings, but one of them. And then the other teams that matter is that kit right there. I should say the top of his kit, that black and yellow jersey, matches a bunch of other riders. And then Intelligentsia, which has the kind of Superman motif of black, blue, and red, and a little bit of white. They're moving up there to the left. Right. Alright, so we have Intelligentsia, Florida Velo, I think, is the black and yellow. I'm not sure. Still not sure. I should probably figure that out. And then the White brothers are kind of the three power horses, or powerhouse, in terms of teams. There's definitely some individual riders still that are incredibly talented. Warwick Spence comes to mind, who won the day before. Rides for Cymet, the wheel company. I should look that up too. Pretty sure it's wheel company. So my numbers for this race, I had somewhere in here I had a 1500 watt sprint, which is awesome. So that's in my capabilities, that type of sprint, but I haven't seen it actually all year. The best I've been producing this year is 1350s. Haven't gotten any 1400s and no 1500s. Today was 1507 was my max, somewhere in there. It was not on the finishing sprint, so I'm kind of curious where that Easter egg is hiding. If anybody spots it, let me know, because I'm sure I'll miss it in the commentary. And then 280 normalized power. And I forgot to mention that yesterday, that hill climbing effort, which I was only in the race for 20 minutes or so, but that normalized power is 320. That's interesting how that works. I wonder what the numbers are on that. So this course, flat, consistent. I felt like I was gunning it quite a bit. There was plenty of coasting spots too, but yesterday was either all power or no power. There was no in between, so it's interesting how that arrives at a very different number. So it's a fascinating calculation to me. Normalized power, I guess I can roughly understand that, but the intensity factor numbers or training stress scores, those are pretty cool, and they seem to be very accurate. And I know they're proprietary algorithms, I believe, but they're pretty good, man. Pretty good. So when my TSS says I had a hard day, it pretty much feels like a hard day. So you can't fool yourself, which is nice. Now, I have this thought too with in terms of getting back to helping people understand racing a little bit that are not racing currently. The interested, like, so you go on a group ride with a group, right, which is great. But the thing you never get to practice is turning at a high speed like this, just because it's just dangerous with a group that didn't know they were in a race and traffic and blah blah blah. So really on a race course is the only time you get a solid chance to do this, or if you're lucky enough to live in an area that has a crit practice, or if there's maybe a track or an empty parking lot you can go to get the hang of it. Helps a lot. Empty parking lots are great because you can just whip through those parking medians and create your own little course, and all you're after really is just the practice of bombing into this turn at, let's see, 26 miles an hour, hitting that turn and not freaking out. So if you can find a place where you can do that, you'll be leaps and bounds ahead by the time you get into the race, because you'll just have that confidence. And again, that confidence has a lot to do with racing, that you've been in this situation before and you know how to handle it. So to that end, there's a time toward the end of the race where my wheel was almost taken out. My front wheel was almost taken out, and I hesitate to even say that. The guy took an inside line and then drifted out, probably a little further than I would have liked him to, of course, but it wasn't anything crazy dangerous or anything. So that's an interesting little move up the road here. There's 4 or 5 guys up the road. Let's see what happens. Yeah, not much. Okay, so that was compelling enough that, and they didn't quite hit it with full gas, right? So that contained both White brothers. So they have that skin suit that says funkier across the back. Is the one 650 over there is one of the White brothers, and the other one is the leader jersey. And God, I hope I'm right about that. Anyway, so now here's where I join a little break. So I move up the road. Definitely have one of the White brothers with me, or I'm going to join him, I should say. And this is that's 500-600 watts up the road. This is a pretty good dig. And we are going to get Carlos, who is off on his own up here. So he was in that little, oh, I'm sorry. There's my friend John, or JG, or JC, or whatever his name is, from California, in the Cliff Bar kit. And throughout the week, he's sort of proven himself to be a worthy partner. So I think when he went up the road, Carlos was okay with that. And so in theory, this would be a great break move. So we have an unaffiliated rider right there. We have me, who's unaffiliated. You see Mr. White pull off there and act like he's never been in a bike race before, so he doesn't want to do any work. And that should have been my first clue, right? So my thought at that moment was, oh, he just doesn't think, maybe he doesn't think I'm serious, that I can contribute at all. So I'll go up there and do a good pull, and then maybe he'll start to believe in the break and we can work together. So at this moment, I'm thinking, I have no intentions of competing against these guys for a win, but if I could join a break up the road, that'd be just killer. That'd be awesome. And I also am having confidence issues that I don't know that I can do this. So I put in a pretty good dig there, and then, yep, here's Mr. I've never raced a bike before, not going to pull through. So we had a good group. There's 6 of us, all 3 major teams. There's the black and yellow in the rear view. Intelligentsia, the White brother, the yellow kit, and then 3 random riders. That should have been the perfect mix. But it's clear that something else is going on in this group. And I can only imagine that's team tactics at play, the details of which I don't know. But we have a huge gap. We have the right mix of riders. And see, the Cliff Bar guy, he's happy to pull and do his work, but when he pulls off and everybody's just looking around, he's getting frustrated. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, you guys are not really going to do this. So I'm going to roll back and not waste any effort. And there's the field is right there anyway, so it's not like I got a big rest, but yeah. So that was interesting. It was a good moment. I was proud of myself for trying. I really was. I think that was an important move for me to take part in. Just, It may not have worked. It clearly didn't work. We didn't even get a lap out of it, but I guess we got right at a lap. But yeah, it's unfortunate because I really feel like we had a pretty good shot. So the theory of that is we had the right mix of riders in that group, that the Intelligentsia team, the Florida Velo team, and potentially the series leader would have been back in the field doing a bit of blocking, or at least not helping pull us back. So that's about half the peloton. If you get the black and yellow kit and Intelligentsia up the road, there's not a lot of people left that are going to want to sit on the front in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of privateers like me, and we are not required to be on the front of this group at any time. So that should have worked. It should have worked. But, oh well. There's got to be a reason for it. I don't know what it is. And, I don't know. Maybe I can ponder some theories. But I won't. So, if you know the answer to that, feel free to comment. Or if you have a theory on why that brake didn't stick, let me know. Or maybe we did something wrong. So I'm just not sure. So I'm floating back to catch a little siesta in the back of the group here, which always sounds so appealing, right? When you're up there and you put in a dig and you have some effort, I'll just float to the back. The back is not necessarily a great place to take a rest. Let me tell you that. The middle, that's okay. The back, not so okay. The reason for that is you get spun in these, or you get what we call whipped out of these turns. So every turn we come out, there's 700 watts coming out of that turn. Now, if I were closer to the front of the group, that would be a much more mellow number, because I could go 400 watts pretty much through the whole turn and carry 400 watts out of the turn. Whereas when you're on the back of the group, you're having to hit your brakes and coast into the turn, so you have 0 watts, and then you come out and you're hitting 700 watts. So the average between the front riders and the rear riders is probably still the same, but the effect is drastically different. So when you constantly have to be, a consistent effort is not going to crush your legs like an endless sprint, rest, sprint, rest, sprint, rest. So that's the difference. And I feel like I heard a small crash or two in this race on that first turn, but I could be wrong. Maybe I just heard brakes squealing and not really any crashing. But certainly no one was in bad shape, so it was a pretty safe race. And I had one little moment of fright when we went through corner 1. I'd be curious to see if I can pick out the turn. Like I said, that gentleman took a line that I don't think I would have done, but it wasn't out of bounds. But when he came across my front wheel, man, it was so close. It was unbelievable how close that was. So you can't necessarily slam your brakes to try to avoid that. First of all, because you don't know he's coming. He just sort of floats over there, and all of a sudden you have a problem. And there's very little reaction time because your front wheel is just getting taken out from the side. So there's not much you can do except try to slow down. And hopefully he speeds up just that micron of mile per hour to give you the 2 or 3 millimeters you need to clear tires, and off you go. So luckily that's what happened. And in the past, one of my most fantastic crashes years ago was I was getting into a sprint, and I will take responsibility for this. This, for the most part, was my fault. The person up the road was dropping like a lead balloon, and I didn't necessarily see it in time, and I tried to go left and he went left, and I tried to go right, and then my front wheel crossed his back wheel and down I went, and that was pretty nasty. And it was that same thing, like slow motion. You're looking at your front wheel like, oh, please, please, please clear that rider. No, that time no. But yesterday, yes. How exciting. So we averaged 28 miles per hour in this race overall, and I feel like that's pretty peppy. Sounds like the 2-3 race. My friends who did the 2-3s race, which is younger guys for the most part, they averaged 29. So I was surprised that they were that much faster than us. It doesn't sound like a ton, but it's enough to make a difference. So Now, yeah, I'd be curious to see what the pros were on this course. They did have some rain, so it'd be interesting to see what they came up with. But it was such a big, wide course and fairly safe. So it's interesting on wide courses, right? Like this whole time, we never go across. Hardly. There's only one lap we ever went over that yellow line. So obviously the roads are closed. There's no cars, but just that mentality of being on the right-hand side is just ingrained in our brain, I think. So it appears I've rested physically, but I don't know about mentally. So I think after an effort like that, your brain remembers that longer than your legs, perhaps. That's a good one. I should write that down. We'll bring that up on future ones. Oh well. So I just want to touch on that break again. That was kind of an interesting, just difference in the way people in the peloton operate. So last year there was a big race called in our area called Race the Lake. It's 90, was 90. Now this year it'll be 100 miles, and the payout's pretty strong on it. I think it was $2,500 or maybe $1,500. In the past, it's been as much as I think there was a $10,000 prize if you set the course speed record, and that year for 10 grand, someone definitely set the record. So that was cool. But in that race, I don't remember what the circumstances were, but I definitely got a tongue lashing from one of the White brothers, and I don't have any idea what it was about, nor do I care. But I don't recall what, like I said, I don't recall what it was, but I just remember thinking, well, who do you think you are? So why are you yelling at me? I just don't understand that standoffish attitude. So now the opposite end of the spectrum is after the race. Carlos sent me a text and said, hey, good job bridging up to that break. And if you've been watching these racecasts, I obviously have a lot of respect for Carlos. He's a very strong rider and a really nice guy. So that's awesome. I would just like to see our sport evolve more that direction. So before any of that interaction, I had decided finally today to remember to talk to somebody at the front, at the starting line. So I wished two gentlemen that were to my left and to my right. I said, good luck, have some fun, and they both seemed appreciative of that and said the same in return. So I would like to see a little more of that, especially in the Masters group. None of us are getting paid to do this, or I don't think we're getting paid to do this, and I'm certainly not. So it'd be nice if we just had a little more camaraderie. So that would be good. There is a lot after the race. I mean, I'm not painting a negative picture. There is a lot after the race on the cool-down lap. There's a lot of backslapping and chit-chat, and that's awesome. It's really a lot of fun. But, I'm sure we've all had plenty of times in races where somebody barks at us. And I get it, too. We're all type A, or pretty much all type A people. We're all pretty driven. We're all pretty focused. We all put tons of time into the sport. So if somebody does something that we perceive as ridiculous in front of us, it's hard not to react to that, and I certainly am one that would react that way in the moment. And I usually collect my thought after a moment or two and apologize or whatever I need to do to make it right. But it's something I think we could all work on, being a little more gracious and welcoming in the sport. So, but at the same time, I do understand it. So people have this interpretation of road cycling as we're snobs or elitist or something along those lines, and I don't think that's the case. I always explain to people that are pro, I guess mountain biking is probably the other extreme, where the culture of the sport doesn't lend itself to that type of person as much as it does in road cycling. But I think there's a big difference. In mountain biking, there's very few things that you can do on a mountain bike that's going to affect my safety on my mountain bike. But in road racing or road riding in general, just going down the road, on a non-race day, there's plenty of things that you can do to put me in a wheelchair. So that gets people excited, right? So I just want people to learn what it takes to ride in a group safely, and be willing to, I guess that's the most important thing, is be willing to learn those things. And I think for the most part everyone is who shows an interest in the sport and starts coming around. I know that everyone in the sport loves it and is happy to introduce people to the sport. So if you are newer to the sport, or if you have never raced, this would be my path. I would suggest that you look around your area for a club or a team, or at least a consistent group of people that you can ride with. Find a group ride in your area and start joining them, and just ask questions, because none of these guys came out of the womb on a bike, like everyone has this learning curve. Absolutely every single one of these people had a learning curve to figure out cycling. So there's no question that you're going to ask that's going to be embarrassing, or there's really no question you're going to ask that someone with more experience probably already hasn't heard. So it's fine. And probably someone with more experience had that same question at some point in their career as well. So please, just ask. We'd love to explain our sport. I heard a great podcast the other day. My friends Mark and Sean, they do a podcast called the Midwest Cycling Podcast, and I've been listening to podcasts on my way to these races to make the drive to Milwaukee less miserable, and that seems to work really well. So one of the podcasts I caught was from their guest, Todd Paquette, and Todd is the organizer of the Margie Gessick mountain bike race up in Upper Michigan. But Todd is also an organizer of a lot of things. So he was inspiring to listen to on this podcast in terms of what they're doing for youth cycling. And obviously it's much more focused on mountain bikes, but that's just natural given their area. They have a lot of trails. We don't. So I just am fascinated by the amount of efforts that he's putting forward. So it's definitely got me inspired and thinking about what I can do to make our team, Diablo Cycling, more open and helpful to get people into the sport. And this racecast is part of that effort in whatever way as well. So if you're a category 5 or 4, or maybe even a 3, or you're someone who was in one of these races, I hope that you can pick something up from watching me race, and maybe some from some of my commentary. So I've been racing for over 10 years. I definitely don't know everything, but there's a couple of 1 or 2 things I've figured out in that time, but there's always learning. I'm always learning. So in these last couple laps, I learned a lot in this race. I learned a lot. So we'll go over that. So we're at the halfway point in the coverage here. So there was a intermediate omnium within this series of races. So Tour of America's Dairyland is, pretty sure it's 10 races. And for scoring this year, they're taking your top 8 finishes, if you care about scoring. Or I should say, if you have the opportunity to care about scoring. They're taking your top 8 finishes. So that's Tour of America's Dairyland. However, within that tour, there's also a secondary omnium, which started in today's race, that's only available to a few categories. So what that is a sprint competition, which I won last year in the 3/4 category. So it's in the 3/4 category last year, it was the last 3 days of racing. So what they did is halfway through, they would announce a lap, and if you were first through 5th place on that lap, got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 points. And they do the same thing on Friday's race, Saturday's race, and Sunday's race, and whoever has the most points on Sunday wins the competition for this race within a race, so to speak. So I love that organization. It's really cool. I love the little race within a race. I did not participate this year just because I can't get up to the front to do anything about any of this stuff, but it was neat. It's neat that it exists, that's for sure. So I will say last year I didn't think I was participating either, and then I ended up getting a few points, and then by the time I figured out what I could do if I raced intelligently Friday, or on Saturday and Sunday, then I put my head on straight and went for those points, and I got it. So that was cool to win that, and it was actually the money prize for that was great. I forget what it was, but it was enough to cover pretty much my whole series. So it ended up being really. So between that and a few creams I won or this wasn't last year. This goes back 2 years. Sorry, in the 3/4s, I made. I pretty much broke even. Even with gas, I broke even for the series. But that is definitely not the case this year. So we are out of coffee at my house. We discovered that the morning of this race. And that was disheartening, to say the least. My wife was kind enough to pick me up a cup of coffee, so tragedy was averted. However, if you get second place in these races, you get a pound of coffee. That would have been awesome to come home with a pound of coffee because we're out of coffee. I'm just saying, that would have been cool. Not that that was on my mind. The only reason I know that is because I talked to the person who got second place and he was holding a bag of coffee. So that's the extent of my knowledge of what they give out on the podium this year. And speaking of who got second, we'll see if he squirts around me here. He's in the rearview mirror right now. Michael Froh is another gentleman who gives back a lot to cycling and is very encouraging, which is nice. So he ended up getting second in this race, which is interesting because it was about probably within the next lap or two. At some point I was behind Mr. Froh, and I thought to myself, Michael always finishes well, and I feel like I should be able to do most things that he can do on a bicycle within reason. So why don't I just follow his wheel toward the end of this race? Oh, I wish I would have stuck with that plan. But I didn't. And we'll see the mistakes I made. So let's see if we can. Oh, I'm pretty far up the ladder right now, so that's good. Oh, never mind. They're initiating their turn up there. Oh, there's a little break up there. All right. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that was occurring. So it looks like there's a little 4-man break up the road. I'd be curious to know what that little break consisted of. I'd be very curious to know what teams were in that break. Oh, I guess we're bringing them back already. So that was short-lived. Such is life. All right. I'm just trying to figure out if I remember any of these moments. So this turn got interesting throughout the day. This is turn. Oh, where are we at? Yeah, before the chicane. That little orange dot is way off on the. Yeah, that little orange dot is way off. That's interesting. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what that orange dot means. Oh, I guess that's where I stopped there. Is it moving? Oh, I can't even tell. In any event, that turn before the chicane was an interesting turn all day long. So it wasn't a terrible turn by any means. There was a manhole cover right in the middle of it, which sucked because I hit it once and forgot it was there, and bounced out further than I had planned. And there was a gentleman over there to the right, and he reacted just fine. He didn't have a problem with it, but I felt badly that I had forgotten that there was a giant manhole cover at the apex of a turn. So those are things that you just can't forget. That's not okay. So I guess I'm sort of recovered from my effort because I'm up here at the front again. And there's a move up the front, and there's an Intelligentsia rider that goes for it. So that's cool. Carlos is going to come around and block. The Florida Velo guy is blocking. Yeah, so that other, I don't know what kid he's from, but the other rider goes, and then Carlos is just going to follow his wheel, and that's the extent of that. Carlos won't pull to get that back because there must be one of their riders up in that little move. So that's blocking done correctly, right? So if you think blocking is getting on the front and getting in the way, that's not accurate. You do want to gradually slow the field down if you are on the front, but if someone else comes around you, you either decide to let them go and try to bridge the break, or if they're going to pull the brake back like that gentleman is, then all you can do is sit on their wheel and go along for the ride. And then theoretically, once they pull that brake back, you would launch a counterattack. You know, in Carlos's situation right here, you would launch a counterattack because we caught that little move, and then that move then could have a chance. Easier said than done. So that's a lot of my thoughts on a lot of the racing I'm doing, or the commentary is watching these things unfold and saying, easier said than done. So I pulled up to that move and I thought, I don't think I can do that again. I already gave it one shot in a break. I'm not going to do it again. So here I'm on the front. I definitely do not want to be. Oh, I think at this point I look. Oh yeah. I look back. I see that we do have a gap. Oh, I do go for it again. Hey, look at that. 2 brake attempts. 2. Okay, let's see what this one is made up of. We have an Intelligentsia. We have black and gold. And we have our Cliff Bar friend. So it's pretty much the same group. And we have another CZ Velo. So, you know, not a... that's good too because they have some riders in the field. So that's even more blockers. Oh, there was a Preem. So those guys are going for the Preem. I am decidedly not going for the Preem. So I didn't even know there was a Preem. But I put my head down and get to work. Carlos is straight away on my wheel. And this is the one. Okay, now it's all coming back to me. I forgot that I had tried 2 of these things. So we have a good gap after the Preem. Those 2 Preem guys are going to be pretty gassed. Carlos goes, and I'm gassed. I couldn't stay on that wheel. It would have been awesome if I could have, because that's a sizable gap right there. If that little 4-man group, and if I could have joined them, could have gotten organized quicker, there's definitely some potential. So now I'm curious to see who's yanking that field back. So I'm in the middle. I'm like, that's not going to happen. So that guy is a sprinter, I think. So he pulled the field and then he backs off. So it's hard to say. I think his kit is intensity is what it says. So anyway, that was fun. So back in the field. Now I really need to rest. So I got 20 more minutes to get my act together. I wish I was paying more attention to the wattage output that I did in that, catching that little move and then being in that little quote-unquote move. It wasn't much of a move, but for me, it was important. It's a big deal, okay? I know it doesn't look like much, okay? But for a guy to be a tail gunner on the back of this field all week long and then get a little moment to be at the front, that's pretty cool for me. So, oh well. Sometimes you just got to try, right? So that may not have been the smartest racing, but I actually think it was. I have no problem with that tactically. We gave it a go. We had a gap. I mean, like, what more can you ask for, right? So that's pretty good. Pretty good show. But now I need to rest. So those, again, crit racing, all about cumulative effort. Does not always reward the strongest rider. A lot of times crit racing rewards the rider who's the most efficient. And I have burned off at least 2 major matches, and I don't know what I have left. So I wonder if that 1500 watts was back in that spot. Don't know. I don't know. I'll have to watch later. I know it's not the finishing sprint. That's all I know. And the finishing sprint I did was not bad, but I just didn't pass anybody. So that's disheartening to me to have someone who feels like they're a decent sprinter get a decent sprint, even though it's in the middle of the field. But I had clean road and not be able to pass anybody at full tilt. That's not a good sign, friends. That is not a good sign. All right. So I'm still pretty pegged from that effort, 160 heart rate. But I never had the feeling like I wanted to quit today, like I've had in the last couple races. So that was good. In fact, this race got me so excited that I'm not as terrible as I thought. That I came home and started looking up other races. The Intelligentsia race series in Chicagoland in July, and trying to figure out, well, oh, maybe I can talk the wife into going down there for a few days with the kids and hanging out in Chicago and doing maybe 2 or 3 of those races. It'd be fun. I've never done any of them, and it'd be fun to try and at least support the effort, because I think it's a really cool thing to have 2 really, really well done series in our area. And Chicago is not terribly far from me. It's far enough to want a hotel. It's 3 hours, so it's not something I want to do back and forth. And just the traffic of Chicago is its own little nightmare. But I went to college, yep, in Bradley University, which is in Peoria, Illinois. And Bradley draws kids from Chicago and from St. Louis. I grew up in St. Louis. What that means is that there's a lot of, maybe not a lot anymore, but a few people I know in Chicago that are college friends that maybe I could find a basement to crash in while I'm racing for the week. So probably not appropriate for the family to be crashing in someone's basement, but I don't know, no big deal. So if anyone is watching that I went to college with and wants to host me in Chicago for a few days, I'll just throw that out there. That'd be great. It'd be especially useful if you have enough room for a wife and 2 kids. That'd be nice. We clean up after ourselves well, I would say. Kids are very nice and respectful. They're the easiest kids in the entire world, actually. All right. Kid bragging, check. Back to racing. All right. So I think we're getting to be about 4 laps left, which sounds like not much, but these are long laps. Now, I'm just trying to remember that too. These are long laps. Now again, I'm in a good spot, pretty close to the front. There must be a move up the road because the pace car is long gone. I don't know who or what's up there. When I was rambling about the kids, I suppose somebody was sneaking away on us there. So. Well, who's ever up there, it must not be an Intelligentsia rider, because that was a decent pull, I think. I don't think that was blocking. That was the one that was close to my wheel. Ooh, that was close. Oh, man. Yeah, the camera does not do it justice. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna slow-mo that just for fun. Let's take another look. All right, he's coming on the inside, and I'm just on the outside, and I just slow down just enough. Yeah, I have no complaints with his turn by any means. So in any event, that was closer than I was comfortable with. So it was a heart-pounding moment there. So in real life, I'm looking down at my tread of my tire and seeing that it's going to hit his tread of his tire or his sidewall, and I'm thinking of the next step is me crashing into the curb and taking out half the group. Luckily that did not happen, but there was not a lot of clearance between those 2 tires, I'll just tell you that much. So, but we all lived, no big deal. In terms of like what I would do differently in that turn, I guess I would either assert myself more going into that turn so that he can't come out, or I would be more submissive and go behind him a little even further, so that when he did swing over, there'd be more clearance. So if you recall a second ago, I was at the front of this group, and now if you're looking up the road, I'm getting swarmed left and right. So this gentleman here in the Jameis bike has let us drop quite a bit. Not that I'm blaming him, but I think he had a lot more room for gas going into that previous turn. He could have kept us both up quite a bit higher in this little wrangling. Oh well. So now you kind of get stuck, right? I'm on the outside of this turn, which I'm looking forward to being on the outside of this turn because I can carry a lot more speed on the outside of this turn than whenever I'm in the inside. But you definitely run that risk of getting somebody else having a problem and washing you out. That didn't happen all day, which is great. So you can carry that speed with less wattage impact. And now we're definitely trimmed up for toward the end of the race. And so we got 10. I bet there's only 2 laps left because this race was a little bit short. So yeah, there's only 6 minutes left. So I bet there's only 2 laps left. So I'm in a pretty decent spot. I'm not so upset about my positioning right now, but it's about to get ugly. So Carlos is in the front. He takes everybody over to the left, which is an unusual line for the race. No one has done that all day long, and that causes a little bit of confusion and chaos in the tail whipping. And here I let go of some spots, I believe. So yeah, we have that little hiccup in the corner, which wasn't so bad, but there I let 1, maybe 2 people by, and then I'm thinking, all right, I'll grab a couple spots back. See, I'm in a good spot, right? Like, I'm pretty close to the front without being in the front. That's not so bad. But we're gonna get messy in this turn, and I'm gonna let more people are gonna come by me. So what I should have done right there is jumped up to move up 3 spots, but I didn't. I backed off. I lost a lot of speed in that turn because I was forced to the inside more than I wanted to be. And the outside, this is in the draft, or in the protection from the wind if you're on this side of the road. And I should have driven that up because I should have known that people were going to start swarming the left or the right, and I should have surfed my way over there sooner. So I'm still not in a terrible spot. And there's Michael, who's going to get second in the race overall. Should have grabbed that wheel. So I'm letting myself sit in the middle under this theory that I'm not overexerting myself, but look how many guys are going past left and right. There's 2, 4 guys, maybe even 5 guys went by us just in the time it took me to say that sentence. So if every turn on the last 2 laps I'm giving up 3, 4, 5 spots, this is not going to work out in the end, right? You can see this. You can see this coming. So that little, I think it's a 2-man break up the road. They're getting pulled back, and I almost had a feeling like there was a call to arms to not pull them back completely, although I doubt that would take place in our category. Here, good job, Brian. Move up. Well done. That's a good time to move up. There's the series leader. That'd be a good wheel to be on. Mike Budd goes up and pushes the pace, brings 3 people around him. So I just lost 3 more spots right at the last second. And, you know, I am gassed, right? 161 heart rate, again, that's a lot for me. But being on the series leader wheel, that's not so bad. But see what he does? He doesn't get nervous about moving up. Now I'm kind of out in no man's land. Mike Budd's leading the charge. I don't know how long that's going to last. Okay. Now the White brothers are in line. They're definitely going to help each other out on their wheels. So you kind of have to let that one go and have my wheel. All right, now we're getting swarmed on the left. So there's 1, 2, 3. I just let 3 people by me. There's 4. This has got to be the last lap. So Mike just was on the front and gave a big effort. Not sure why, but he did. And this is pretty much where the race gets away from me. So if I had gotten past this tall person ahead of me somehow, that would have put me in the lead group, but I didn't do that. I'm going on the inside of this turn. Again, I'm going to lose a ton of speed and have to power huge to get out of this turn. Let's see what I do. Wattage, 1100, 1200, 1100 watts. Now, I'm still on the correct side of the road, but I'm gassed. I can't get past. I can't move up. I know, especially watching this, I really, really want to move up right now, because if I can get ahead of this left-hander coming up, going through the chicane, like it all builds on top of each other. This is a critical part of the race. If I could have gotten further up here, my finish would have been drastically improved. So there's a rider going up on the left, and I'm going to be in the middle. Oh, this is not, that's the deciding factor of where I messed up, was choosing to go in the middle of this group instead of staying on the outside. Because if I had been on the outside, it would have forced me to go harder right there to sort of dive bomb that corner to get ahead of some folks. But I didn't do that. So now look how far back I am, just like that. I was in a great spot with 1 to go, and now I'm not. So I'm on this side of the course. I'm thinking, I got to pass somebody because I'm not going to get anybody in the finishing straight. I better pass. This is the time to pass. This is the time to pass. I remember saying that to myself. So Carlos, I'm just passing him. He ends up getting a much better finish than me. He cleans up 10 spots ahead of me, I think, in this finish. So I'm in a pretty good spot. Well, not a good spot. I'm way too far back. I don't have a draft right now either. I took that turn way too inside for the speed that we had coming, and there's my 1200 watts. And I'm on that guy's wheel, and I'm shifting. I passed I guess two people, and all that sprinting got me 2 people. That is it. Goodness gracious. Arg. So that's the race. It was fun. 2 breakaway attempts, you know, a reasonable finish. I'm not so upset about that. I think I was 23rd out of 57 or something like that. I'll take that. So thanks for watching. If you can, share this video, subscribe, send it to somebody who doesn't race bikes currently. Thanks. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.